Hello once again. I'm here today with a little Norsca battle for you guys. So I'm going to be led by Wulfrik the Wanderer. My opponent is Poncha, who is in control of the mighty Dowie, who themselves are led by Ungrim Ironfist the Slayer King. So let's get this underway. Let's slow it down there, we'll go through the army. So I've got a front line of marauders with great weapons. These guys are fairly cheap and super effective against dwarfs. Great weapons are good at taking down armor. As you can see, they are armor piercing. And of course, all dwarfs have massive heavy armor. Even cheap troops like miners have a decent amount themselves. In the back here, I do have one more unit of Marauder Champions. So these are the more elite version of the Marauders. I brought them just to give that extra punch in case my opponent with some elite infantry that these guys would really struggle with. I do have the Miststalkers in the back, with Regiment Renowned Familiar Warriors. These guys are just great in general against dwarfs. They have to be a little bit cautious of guns as they are large targets and get shot down quite easily. They are armor sundering, armor piercing, overall very good unit against the Dowie. Now up in the skies, I do have a Frostworm. The reason I picked this was just I hadn't used one before and I really wanted to give it a go. I thought that added mobility might be pretty decent against dwarfs. As you can see, it's just a two-headed, pretty much an ice dragon. They're very good, has a couple of breath attacks, causes terror, and has frostbite. Now for my leadership, I do have Wulfrik the Wanderer on his mighty chariot here. Now I'm not very good at using chariots yet, they require quite a lot of micro, but I know chariots are good against dwarfs, so I thought, well, I might as well, take him as chariot and try it out and do a little bit of experiment. And in the back here, lastly, I do have a Shaman Sorcerer of Metal. He's brought a full little spells with him. Let's get nice and close. He does have Transmutation of Lead, Glittering Robe to give armour to my lightly armoured infantry, and Plague of Rust just to take away that armour from some of the mighty dwarfs. Now over on the far side, I have two units of Norsca Ice Wolves to try and get on any artillery pieces or range. And then the Marauder Horsemen here, who were a bit of a late pick. I was kind of running out of time and I chucked them in. In hindsight, I don't think Marauder Horsemen are necessarily the best take against dwarfs. The Thrown Axemen, however, would be a pretty good pick. Now for my opponent, he's gone for a front line of miners with blasted charges. These are going to be really good against Norscans. Norscans normally, for the most of them, have light armour, and the blasted charges should be able to do a pretty damn good amount of damage. He does have two units of Bugman Rangers. These guys are very cool. I don't unfortunately have the ability to use them because I don't have their DLC yet, but I've seen them in use, so they're crossbow infantrymen who can also fight pretty well in combat. Up in the air, he does have two gyrocopters with the brimstone guns, one on either flank, and his back line is held up by longbeards with great weapons, which are the kind of, they're not elite infantry, but they're kind of in the middle. They're just above average in my opinion. Now he also has a big unit of giant slayers in the back for that anti-large, and he is going to be led by Ungrim Ironfist over here. So it only makes sense that he has some giant slayers with him. Ungrim being the Slayer King himself, very good at killing anti-large big targets. He's also a very good duelist in his own right. He does also have the Iron Drakes in the back, which are the Trollhammer Torpedo variety. They're going to be firing their little missile launchers, trying to take down any large target I've brought. And also a Runesmith. I feel Runesmith is always good in any dwarf army for the most part. And I think that's everything, so let's get this underway. So I'm trying to use the trees to my best. When I first deployed, I deployed behind them just in case my opponent had gone for a lot of cannons, so I can try and use the trees for a little bit of cover. I do steal a little bit of a free pick on the side here, some Bugman Rangers out on the flank, so I do pop in with the Frostworm just to try and get those 3 kills. However, my opponent was shooting in for a little while with the gyrocopter, and it actually did a surprising amount of damage. I always thought the gyrocopter was a tiny bit of a meme, but it seems to be doing a decent bit of work. As you can see, Wulfrik also goes charging in there, just trying to finish off that unit nice and early. Marauder Horsemen have moved up just to throw their little javelins, but are getting picked apart pretty nicely by this brimstone gun and the rangers on the side. Opponents just dropping their little bombs here, but it didn't do too much damage. We see a few little marauders just, lost their lives, but they don't care. They are marauders. They're there for fighting. We do have these marauders charging to the front line. The blasting charges, however, do mess up their charge pretty bad. A lot of them going flying, but now they've got in, they should really start to tear up these miners. And you can see along the front line, marauders are rushing in all directions and starting to crush down these on these, fairly cheap miners, who will hold for a little while. All dwarfs are pretty strong, but these guys shouldn't do too much damage back. My opponent has responded by chucking some longbeards into the front line. We're going to fare much better. So I believe the Norscan hounds have moved up, and they are trying to get on top of these Bugman Rangers. However, they are getting dragged down by the giant slayers, who I didn't see, who are hidden in the forest. They're going to do some great work against these wolves. However, the wolves should be able to do a bit of damage back With Slayers are very powerful, but they have no armour themselves, so they always lose a few dwarfs, even to kind of light infantry. Shaman over here has been casting a few spells to help with this front line. Hit down a Plague of Rust here and a Transmutation of Lead, so really kind of new to this front line, and allow my Familiar Warriors and Marauders with great weapons just to punch through this front line. We're managing to clear up the right hand side quite nicely. Wulfrik's just running around trying to avoid getting in too much of a pitch fight. He's chasing off these rallying troops on the side, while the right flank kind of crumples inwards. Frostworm's flying around. He's been doing a few breath attacks. He's just trying to find a nice target to jump in on, and the front line for the dwarves has started to buckle. However, the left hand side is going much better for them. They've got this little pocket of strength up in the trees, and in the front line they've lost these miners. These longbeards are pretty big hurt on these marauders with great weapons. Over on the left side, it looks like we have the wolves have rallied, and they're going to be rushing back to into the action. And these brimstone cannons have managed to scare off the marauders, the marauder horsemen, and they're coming back into the battle. So see, we've managed to completely shatter this unit of longbeards, which is no small feat. Longbeards do not like to run away, and as you can see, I did drop in my Frostworm trying to get into his Dragon Rangers. However, he has been hit with a Rune of Wrath and Ruin, which is slowing him down, and he's slowly getting dragged down by these giant slayers. I'm trying to move him back out and up into the air, but he is taking quite a lot of hurt. The Marauders come rushing into the forest, trying to chase down these Iron Drakes, and I'm going to pincer them with these returning wolves to really get them stuck in there. And as you can see, with that, they do break. They're going to be beaten down. They are quite slow. All dwarfs are pretty slow. They're quite good at sprinting and they're wasted on cross country, but they are going to get dragged down because much faster than Marauder champions. Frostworm has flown into the air, and he did do a nice breath attack on these giant slayers, doing a little bit of damage. He's been trying to find a home. He's going to start chasing down these gyrocopters. He's been doing a lot of work, actually, been very impressed with them. This last little bastion of front line that was still fighting was won by the Longbeards, and the Frostworm's going to be dropping on them, hoping to get some free kills. So Wulfrik's been over here with some Marauders, just clearing up this side and trying to chase down any troops. However, they are going to be coming back to the main fight, as this is going to be the real kind of deciding moment. As you can see at the moment, it's very even, the power of balance right up here. I do outnumber my opponent, but he does have a lot more elite troops. Wulfrik does drop his little ship down the side here. And as you can see though, the Frostworm is getting gunned down by these brimstone guns. I was really surprised at the amount of damage they managed to do. They've been a real menace to me this game, and I've managed to scare off the dragon. Wulfrik, however, is going to be popping in. I've been trying to roll through these dwarves with these scythe wheels and cut down as many as he can. Now I've been forced into a bit of a pit fight here, which is actually really suiting the runesmith. He's been dropping a lot of his buffs and spells, which has been increasing all of these troops. However, my wizard has now popped up, and he's been dropping down some spells of his own, just trying to debuff these dwarves, while the sheer weight of the great weapons are going to be trying to cut through their thick armour. As you can see, unfortunately, the dragon is flying off, and I don't think he's going to be coming back. Wulfrik's trying to get out of range of these brimstone guns, who are actually doing a crazy amount of damage to him here. You can see his health is starting to rack down very quickly. If he tried to hide in behind some trees, but these mighty Dowie aren't having any of it, and the super accurate shots here is really starting to do a great amount of damage to him. So I do try and just move him over to the side, break away a little bit from these brimstone guns, at least make some use of him breaking these returning units. Ungrim has disengaged from the front line, trying to rally with his giant slayers on the side. And I've noticed this, but I've left him go as I'm just trying to take down this runesmith now. His runes have been very annoying, and I just want to get him off the battlefield as quick as possible. And all these great weapons are going to be trying to cut through his thick armour. We have some miners returning on the side there, but there's not many of them. Oh, there they go, actually. They just break as soon as they hear a little bit of battle. Wulfrik, however, was getting absolutely gunned down by his brimstone guns, and now they are out of ammo, but they did enough damage that he does indeed break. He's going to be running for the hills. My opponent, very wisely here, is going to be trying to chase him off with this unit of gyrocopters, who don't have too much value anymore. They have run out of ammo. It's a great play by my opponent to chase off my leadership. These giant slayers are going to be trying to get on top of my wizard. However, I'm going to be moving away, I do spot this, and trying to race over to Wulfrik to save him. This big blob fight's gone very well for me. All the dwarfs have died or broken off, and this runesmith is just getting beat in a circle here. The Miststalkers are smashing into him, and it looks like he's just about to break. And I'm not going to let him get away. He's going to be surrounded by this big mob and just beaten to death. Ungrim's running over to the side here, rallying with his last pocket of strength, which is these slayers, himself, one unit of miners, some returning longbeards, and these brimstone guns who are just chasing off my leadership. So it looks like Wulfrik is doomed by this point, and these gyrocopters do drop down on my mage, pinning him in place. I'm trying to break through, but they just have too much mass. So the only thing I can do in this situation is move backwards. Fortunately, and very well played to my opponent, he has been chasing the giant slayers. So my lord has now been pinged in, or my mage, sorry, and he's getting beaten to death super quick. There's nothing I can do. I'm trying to force click him to get out, as you can see. He just can't push through these mighty dwarfs. And with that, my leadership structure has just completely crumbled. My lord's just been chased off the battle, and there's no way this shaman is going to be coming back, especially pursued by these gyrocopters. It's what looked like a very good situation with me winning this big blob fight over here and having my leadership intact. All of a sudden, the power balance does normalise and it's back into the middle. So I'll speed forwards a little bit, just while both armies are kind of repositioning and rallying. I do form up into a bit of a blob, and the dwarf is getting all their strength back together before we do engage one more time. And you see some of my units are already wavering before the fight has even begun. This is obviously because my leaders are dead. And the Fimir do run into a little bit of pounds on the miners, but do try and flee back into these marauders to escape the giant slayers. At this point, I'm trying to get all my marauders to kill the slayers, or the Fimir jump from the gyrocopters. However, because I did initially charge into those miners, they have been pinned a little by these much quicker slayers. Well, much quicker than an average dwarf. And as you can see, there's a couple of dead Fimir on the floor here, and they are starting to break. Now, quite a few of my units are starting to run out of morale here. I managed to almost scare off these gyrocopters, however, the Fimir are running, these marauders are running, and these two units right here are wavering. The only thing really holding my army in place right now is the Marauder Champions, who are obviously the much more elite version, and they're getting there and doing a fairly decent amount of work. My opponent is trying to chase off these Fimir with gyrocopters, but realising that he really needs them in this main fight, he does start bringing them back down onto my champions. You see most of my army is starting to break here. I have just this one unit holding and this other one which is wavering. It's so close, they're just about holding in there. The two units running in this direction, and I obviously have two units running away this way. Just looking rather bleak now. Power balance is gone quite heavily in my opponent's favour. I do outnumber him heavily, but of course he still has his lord and his elite giant slayers who do have 3 chevrons now. Luckily though, on the left hand flank, all 3 of my units have rallied. They're all pretty beaten up, but they are going to be kind of running back into the fray, hopefully managing to help out these rather beleaguered Marauder champions. And equally, my Marauders on the right hand side have managed to rally, and they're going to be running back in. So this has once again managed to normalise the power balance right up here, or balance of power. And they're going to be flooding back into this one big mosh pit. These brave Marauder champions are still holding. They haven't wavered, well, they have started to waver a little bit, but they haven't broken, and I don't think they're going to. They're getting in here and they're crushing these slayers. At this point, I'm really trying to target down the gyrocopters and the slayers, trying to ignore Ungrim as much as possible, and he is unbreakable. There's no way I'm going to be able to force him off, and I want to just surround him with numbers at the end of the battle if I can. My opponent is cycle charging him with his gyrocopters, trying to keep them alive and just trying to get that charge bonus wherever he can. However, this unit on the right hand side has been surrounded by some more great weapons who are just beating them to death. And although my opponent does just about manage to sneak away for now. The Fimir have run back in, but they're wavering. They're down to 2 models. They're up against the Slayer King himself. They're not having a good day, and they are going to be running for their kills. See, these Marauder champions are really quite low on health now. They've only got 32 models left. But they're doing bits. They're not doing too bad. They are managing to take down this gyrocopter right here, who is the last of his unit, and it looks like he is just about to break. And with that, I very much doubt he's going to be coming back for his 100 health. Although, at the same time, my Marauder champions, my Marauders with great weapons have broken as a result. And I'm really just, it's become a massive mosh pit now and a real grind. I was actually talking to my opponent in the chat at this point, and just saying, I had already said GG by this point when my unit started to run in both directions. I thought that was game over. We're just talking about how tanky Ungrim is, the last dwarf standing. He's the last of his kind now. As you can see, the flaming wreckages of these gyrocopters that are dragged down by these mighty marauders with great weapons. So at this point, it is just my 3 units all on Ungrim, and somehow these Marauder champions are still standing in the fight. There's only 20 of them left, with a super tiny amount of HP, but they are still standing and fighting. Now my units aren't the most elite, however this many units hitting them from all sides can do a good ton of damage. Great weapons are very powerful, and if you hit the opponent in the back, I don't know if any of you guys know this if you're new to the game, it does cut their melee defense in half. Obviously you're not going to block so well if someone's hitting you from behind. He is completely surrounded, he's been taking a lot of damage. However, these great weapons here are starting to waver and my champions are getting very, very low. We take an overlook of the battlefield. I don't think there's anything else left. I have my 3 units running away here, but they're not going to be returning with how low health they have. And look at this, this is so bad. My Marauder great weapons do break and start to run. These champions are waver with only 17 left. However, my saving grace here is I do have this fairly chunky unit. They've got 36 health, they've gone up to a silver chevron now, and they're going to be trying to beat down Ungrim. The Marauder champions do finally break. They've been fighting the entire battle. They've got a ton of kills, 132, but with 9 of them left they do start to break. And it's once again come down to one brave dwarf against 1 unit of Marauders. So where this happens at the time with the dwarfs, I did a battle, I think it was about a week ago, where I just had the white dwarf pretty much standing alone against a massive high elves. I managed to pull that one out. Let's see if Ungrim can do it himself. He's popped down his buffs, but luckily his Marauders weapons have rallied once more. They're going to be charging back into the fray. And with that, my champions also rally. The 9 of them themselves going to be charging back in. And this is still heavily in my favour now, power of balance. However, it still could go either way if he can just break these troops. That's all he needs to do. You'll see a massive hit there. He's taking their leadership down. And this unit is going to start to break. The champions are wavering before they either get in. But the Slayer King is down just to 83 health. I just need a few more hits to kill him. He's really tense, really hoping my units don't break. But it looks like with that, the Slayer King is slain by the mighty champion. Very close game, very fun game, had me on the edge of my seat the entire game. And let's go to the end stats. So that was a rather long game, a bit of a grind there. So well played to my opponent Poncha. Great to see the dwarfs in action. I always love playing dwarfs and facing dwarfs. And his build did pretty good. I was very impressed with his gyrocopter play. I've never actually had them work particularly well before. Haven't had people use them particularly well against me, so it's nice to see him do a lot of damage. They managed to take out this Frostworm, take out Wulfrik, and also pinning my Shaman in place so the Slayers could do their work. And naturally, in the Slayer King's army, himself and the Slayers, really the MVPs. They have 152 kills and 120. And also his Runesmith, actually, did keep his units in the fight a lot longer than they would have against that big blob, and did a lot of damage. Now for my army, I really like the Marauders with great weapons. They're fairly cheap, and against dwarfs they're just such a solid pick. They will take a lot of damage from missile fire, especially for things like Bugman Rangers and the minor blasting charges. But they're so cost effective, 79, 72, 65 kills, all very good. These Marauder champions were definitely the MVPs for my army. 133 kills, they went up several chevrons, and they just did so much work tearing apart these dwarfs and really holding in there at the end against Ungrim and anchoring my army. Wulfrik got 130 kills. I don't think I used him as effectively as I could have. I'm not the best with chariots. However, I didn't realise he got that many kills, so he still did quite a lot of work. My Shaman was getting in there, popping those debuffs and doing a decent job. For me, I really like these guys as a pick. I did get them killed and dragged down slowly by the Slayers, but they got in there and helped with the front line quite comfortably. So overall, really enjoyable game, very close game, really enjoyable. So I hope you guys enjoyed this as well. Just leave a like, guys, if you did. Leave a comment, I'm always happy to chat with people, or subscribe. If you guys do want to support the channel in any other way, I do have a Patreon account. It's going to be linked down in the description. Any donations on there do go straight back into the channel. I was going to be using that money to buy more DLCs. Also, if you become a Patreon member, you'll be able to vote which DLCs I get next, which campaigns I do, and what armies you'd like to see the most. So peace, guys. Hopefully see you soon.